Mr. Holmes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson Hargreave of the Chicago Police Bureau. In reply to your inquiry, Abe Slaney is one of the most dangerous men in Chicago.
Some pancras. Come along, mate. Come along. There's a cab.
Ridden in Thorpe Manor, gentlemen.
As fast as you can.
How do you know?
Expect you're the surgeon from London, sir.
I beg your pardon. What makes you...
She's not dead yet, sir. You may be able to save her. But she's for the gallows.
The gallows?
Why, that's her. She murdered her husband.
Inspector of Police and Doctor of Medicine, I perceive.
Yes, indeed. Inspector Martin, Derbyshire Constabulary.
And I'm Dr. Carthew, the surgeon. This way, gentlemen.
This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes. And I am his friend and colleague, Dr. Watson.
Mr. Holmes? But what do you know of this business?
A good deal. Mr. Hilton Cubitt was my client.
But the crime was only committed at 3 o'clock this morning. How could you hear of it in London and get to the spot as soon as I?
I anticipated it.
We came in hope of preventing it.
And you must have important evidence of which I am ignorant.
Only the evidence of the dancing men.
The dancing men?
Now, I will explain all that to you later. Since we are too late to prevent this tragedy, I am anxious to ensure that justice is done. Will you associate me in your investigation, or will you prefer that I should act independently?
I should be proud for us to work together, Mr. Holmes. But I must warn you, there seems very little to investigate. Mr. Hilton Cubitt has been shot through the heart and he's dead.
And, Mrs. Cubitt?
Seriously wounded.
The bullet passed through the front of her brain and she's still unconscious. Excuse me, gentlemen.
Only one gun has been found, lying on the floor between them. 2 bullets have been fired. With respect, Mr. Holmes, it seems quite clear that Mrs. Cubitt murdered her husband and then turned the gun upon herself.
But they were a most devoted couple.
And the murder room's through here, Mr. Holmes.
No. I would like to start by interviewing the servants. And I beg you, nothing, absolutely nothing, is to be moved. Is this the way to the kitchen?
I should think it must have happened about 3 o'clock in the morning, sir.
Where are your rooms?
Up top, sir. The attics. I was awoke by this terrible bang. An explosion is the only word. Then about a minute later, there was another bang, only not so loud.
What did you do?
I came downstairs, sir, expecting to find Mr. Cubitt up and about chasing burglars and the house on fire.
And the bedroom door was open.
We looked in, but the bed was empty, so we came on down.
The smoke, and the smell were worse down here.
Smell. Ah, you mean of the gunpowder?
Suppose it was, sir, yes.
Now, you say the smell was worse downstairs. Could you also smell gunpowder upstairs?
Yes, sir.
I commend that fact very carefully to your attention, Inspector. Mrs. King. Would you like to sit down, Mrs. King? Now, was the library door open when you reached it?
Open, yes, sir. We could see the candle light on the table, and so we came in. And then... Oh, as terrible a thing as ever I saw or ever feared to see. She was terribly wounded, sir. She was moaning and groaning, and she sort of collapsed on the floor, and she hasn't said anything since.
Saunders.
We moved her up to her bedroom, sir, and sent Fred Walker for the doctor and the police.
And there was no sign of a break-in? Or of an intruder?
No, sir. And all the doors and windows was locked, as we had left them when we went to bed.
Inspector.
Oh, yes, sir. I checked that very thoroughly.
Apart from poor Mrs. Cubitt, nothing else has been moved?
No, sir.
No, we've touched nothing, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, then. I think we can proceed.
Almost instantaneous death, presumably.
Straight through the heart. The bullet's still there.
What about the bullet that wounded Mrs. Cubitt?
That's still in her as well. It will take hands more nimble than mine to move it.
Is this Mrs. Cubitt's handbag?
Yes, it is, Mr. Holmes.
At least 20 50-pound notes. A bribe that failed.
So, 2 bullets fired, 2 wounds inflicted, as you said.
Yes, Doctor.
Then how do you account for the bullet that has so obviously struck the window frame?
By George, however did you see that?
Because, Dr. Carthew, I looked for it.
Wonderful. Why, the bullet's still there.
So a 3rd shot must have been fired.
Which means that a 3rd person must have been present.
Exactly. When you came into this room last night, you say that the door was ajar. Was not that window also open?
I don't know, sir. I think...
No, sir. It was shut.
Saunders, will you and Cook wait in the library? And you, Walker. Dr. Carthew, you may remove the body. It was Mrs. Cubitt herself who shut that window. If Saunders and the cook smelled smoke and gunpowder upstairs, then there must have been a strong through draft. Otherwise, it would not have spread so quickly through the house. We know that door was open. That window, too, must also have been open, but only for a short time.
Well, why only for a short time?
Because the candles have not guttered. There is no trail of wax.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
If the late Mr. Hilton Cubitt fired the bullet which pierced the window frame, he must have been aiming at someone who was standing either inside or just outside the window. Oh, thank you, Inspector.
Which means that the bullet which killed Mr. Cubitt could have been fired by some...
Inspector, your thoughts and mine agree entirely. This is the cartridge case of the bullet which killed Mr. Hilton Cubitt.
Holmes? If 3 shots were fired, why did Mrs. King and Saunders only hear 2 shots?
They were telling the truth, but lied without realizing it.
I'm not sure that I follow you.
You remember what Mrs. King said? I was awoken by this terrible bang, an explosion. It is the only word. And then, a minute later, there was another bang, but not so loud. The first bang was 2 shots, fired almost simultaneously. One from the window, which killed Hilton Cubitt, and one from Hilton Cubitt, which missed and went into the window frame.
And the 3rd shot?
The saddest of all, Mrs. Cubitt, self-administered in her despair. Now, do any of you know of an inn in the neighborhood called Elridge's?
There's a farmer of that name. Lives some miles off, in the direction of Millbrook.
Is it a lonely farm?
Very lonely, sir.
Then it is just possible that the news of what happened here last night has not reached them.
Maybe not, sir.
Excellent. Walker. I want you to take this note to a Mr. Abe Slaney of Elridge's farm. Do not say that the note is from me. And make no mention of what happened here last night. Now, you understand?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Walker. I am expecting a visitor in answer to my note. Now, Saunders, he will ask for Mrs. Cubitt. I want you to show him into this room. I want this house to look quite normal, and you must not give anything away of what has happened.
Very good, sir.
Now, I suggest you return to your duties. And Dr. Carthew, I suggest you return to your patient. Oh, Mrs. King. Your mistress is quite innocent.